A former fighter pilot and test pilot for Ferris Aircrafts, he became a hero after a dying alien charged him with the task of taking his ring and fighting for those who need help. Hal Jordan became Green Lantern, and last month he was our MVP in Avengers versus JLA. Who will tonight's MVP be? Stay tuned to find out. It's so great to be with you for another episode of JLA versus Avengers, which I do with my good friend, John's Comics with Kids, award-nominated friend, twice.
Yeah.
Not for this show, though.
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
We can compete against Justin next year in the same categories.
I can take Justin down.
It's another omnibus show that I'm doing with a partner. So
yeah. Well, welcome. How have you been?
It's been a wild, busy week, but I'm excited to talk Silver Age comics. And yeah, I did comment in the chat. Third best Green Lantern, Hal Jordan. Third best for me. He's middling.
That's right. And we'll start to salute the world's mightiest chatters, or our roll call tonight, as we like to call them, starting with my co-host, John's Comics with Kids. And then Muabunga to Just Vengers. I like that. And it's Ruben Guzman, White Tiger, cool, calm, collected. And he says Kyle over Hal.
I could see that. Kyle is right there neck and neck with Hal. So it depends on which run I've just been reading where Kyle or Hal ranks, you know.
We'll definitely be talking about Green Lantern tonight.
Yes.
With the story that we're going to delve into. And if you're watching on the Rewind, thank you so much for making it to our monthly edition of JLA versus Avengers. One of these comic books, essentially the two teams are battling each other out, but the battle played out decades ago. And we're asking you to kind of keep score and help us determine who won it. Who had the better issue number 5? Justice League of America, Volume 1, Issue 5, or Avengers, Volume 1, Issue number 5? That's what we'll decide by the end of tonight's JLA versus Avengers. And welcome once again. So I thought, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and the comic book all starts with the cover. Actually, I guess before we get started on this, too, tell me about any memories associated with your...
I was going to do my memories associated with your...
Okay, cover. Let's start out, because you actually knew that I owned this comic book before I did.
I mean, yes, that is a fact.
This was an A-OK earlier this year from John.
This was the book that was like cementing this idea of this show with you. You needed number 5. I needed number 3, I think. And we were back neck and neck. Who's going to finish that top 20 first? Yep. Right. And yeah, I snagged that at WonderCon Anaheim. I almost say MegaCon every time. WonderCon in Anaheim just this last spring.
This is a book that
copy.
Yeah, absolutely it is. This is we'll talk about the cover in a second, but just talking about us acquiring our books. This is one I've wanted for a while. I remember, it's so weird that this is a comic book not even, at the time in my collection. I remember Comic Head 84 went to see George in Minnesota, and 84 picked up a copy of this book in Minnesota during his trip. And I was like, oh, I've always wanted that issue, And I was a little bit jealous, and here a couple years later, now I have my own copy. So that's my memory. It's funny that something like that, which wasn't even my experience of purchasing it, comes back to me with this cover. So now, see, I can remember something like that. I walk out of Walmart, no idea where I parked at. Not a clue.
Priorities, though, Ryan. Priorities, right?
Yeah.
What's important is the comics.
Yeah. What about your Avengers 5? Where or when did you get that?
So this I believe was one of the ones. There was a Christmas, I think, 4 years ago, when a friend of mine who worked at my LCS was going back to finish his nursing degree, and he wanted to sell off a big chunk of his collection, and he included a bunch of Silver Age Avengers issues. I got a bunch in that run, and we've discussed that on our kickoff show for this issue 8 included in that set. And I want to say this was one of the ones. They were not high grade; they were definitely mid-low grade, but they all had a lot of great personality. So this one's got a date stamp where it's right there, right next to the Lava Men. It's a March.
Oh yeah.
Date stamp for this one. And I love date stamps on books. The spine is absolutely thrashed on this one, but it holds together well. The colors are still nice and sharp. And I just it gave me that a little bit of that Kirby crackle, even though it's
yeah. Sure did. We'll say hello and station to Tim the comic collector who's joined us. So Tim is a Kyle fan too. So
we got a lot of good Hal Jordan fans already.
Obviously, the Kyle fans have their notification buttons on. Just saying. So let's jump in then with our first official segment, the cover. Your thoughts on this cover for Justice League of America, Volume 1, Issue 5.
I love the energy of it. And I will say it's something that continues through the artwork in this issue. I do love the way that the drawings have movement and weight to them, despite the fact that obviously we're talking about gravity going wild. There is nice weight to the physicality of the characters on the cover. So I do enjoy this. I do like Superman and Batman.
That's what I was going to say. Like, you almost, especially Superman, you almost don't even notice that he's on the cover.
Right. Which continues that trend of DC seeming to want to highlight these other heroes.
He's right there in case you can't see him.
Batman and Superman these tiny little spots.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is their first cover, though, I think.
As a whole crew.
Yeah. As the Justice League, so.
With Green Arrow joined, because if you missed last month, we did issue 4 when Green Arrow joined, so he's obviously front and center in the crew there.
Yeah. So I like this cover. I don't think that there's not, like, you don't look at this and go, that's a standard comic book cover. No. Because I don't know, you just don't see this. The shapes and the positions of the characters are very interesting and intriguing. Yeah. And
the perspective is really great, looking down on them, but they're flying up at us. The cars are turned sideways.
Yeah. And for a lot, I mean, both of these titles have a lot of characters that they have to fit into a cover if they so choose. Right. And I think they did well considering how much they had to fit in there and still put other background in there as well.
Totally.
Yeah. So thoughts on the cover for Avengers?
This feels like, I don't think it's Jack doing this. This is a Stan Lee cover for me.
Okay.
It's like, how many word balloons can Stan fit on a single cover? It is like the artwork really just fills this bottom like third almost of the book. It feels like less than half of it actually has artwork, and everything is so tiny.
Except for Wasp, who is tiny but has to be drawn bigger or you wouldn't see her at all.
Poor Rick Jones is like, I just gonna dance here in the background. Otherwise,
it looks like he's doing some.
He's got a Snapper Carr style, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. So for me, it's very busy. It's very wordy, and this is not. I mean, we talked about how great the covers were last time. This one does not rise to that level for me. It reeks of Silver Age Marvel nostalgia in the way of like, look, I mean, how many exclamation marks do we probably have on this thing? Actually, just one. Okay. I can't even believe it. Just the one after Lava Men. But it's the word bubbles, the constant word balloons going on here. It's overwhelming. And then everything is so tiny by comparison, right? So that's my reaction. What was your reaction to this?
It's all right. I mean, there definitely is perspective on that cover. Like you can tell Giant Man is giant, and even you can kind of tell, even though he's more in the distance, that the Hulk is a little bit bigger than the other guys.
Right.
But the threat of the Lava Men, they don't look, except for being made of lava, they don't look all that scary.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I love the Thor action, but there's a cover coming up. I think it's 7 or so. It's such a better Thor twirling the hammer cover, that this just looks sad by comparison.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I kind of feel like we have a winner already. Like yes, we don't really kind of have to. This is a category
that for me is not difficult. Of the two, it's night and day for me.
Yeah, this is the winner when it comes to the cover. It's this one. Yeah, completely. So, and also, I mean,
but let us know in the chat if you're watching or if you're watching the replay. Did you have a difference of opinion? Which cover you think is better? Mm-hmm. Remember, this is not a Ryan versus John.
No, not at all.
Versus DC. It's really just an opinion show. Like you're looking at these, you're seeing these, or you're hearing the stories in a little bit, and you get to tell us your opinion. Do you feel like a story or a cover works better for you? And it looks like the comic collector's agreeing with us tonight.
Yeah, I'm not surprised there. He's a little biased, but that's okay. You can be biased on this show. That's fine.
Yeah, doesn't hurt anybody.
No. So, yeah, I think when it comes to the covers, DC and Justice League is the winner on this. And I should mention, too, this is going to be an interesting show tonight because if I remember correctly, overall, Justice League has had 2 wins and Avengers have had 2 wins. So someone's breaking the tie tonight.
Yeah, my British friends would call this the rubber match. It's the rubber match to tie break, right?
Sounds good. So, yeah, cover-wise, I think we're pretty good. It's time to delve in and talk a little bit about the story that's going on. And I'll kick us off by talking about the Avengers story tonight. So keep in mind, it was last issue that Green Arrow joined the team. Unlike, at the last page he joined. So here we have kind of a recap of the main cover, on our splash page when Gravity went wild. So we start out at a meeting of the Justice League, and they are in shock. No one's ever betrayed us before. I wonder what villainy he's dreaming up right now. And even Snapper's just shocked that one of his idols, his traitors,
right,
has turned on the Justice League in his very first case. Well, they also mention, that the culprit isn't here, which is proof of his treachery when he shows up. And it is Green Arrow, the one that they just elected. How fast do they decide?
Faster than the Flash.
Exactly. And they confront him with it right there. And he says, hey, wait a minute. You have to hear my side of the story before you judge me. You have to be fair. And he said, well, Superman, Batman, and Snapper were not involved in what we have to talk about, so they're going to be our jury.
Yeah.
And Snapper has a little bit of hope at this point because he's thinking, oh, well, maybe what they're saying about you is all wrong. So they start out, and it's Martian Manhunter who begins with how they felt that they got betrayed by Green Arrow. And he says that he learned in his secret identity of a 6-man prison break. So he summoned a Justice League meeting. And he learned that Monty Morin, the getaway mastermind, had arranged the escape. So what they've done is they've got this little toy balloon and a matchbox. And they end up shrinking all of the villains down in size so they can fit in this and kind of float on away. And, the guards at the prison are none the wiser. They just think it's a kid that lost his toy balloon. And what they realize when they're escaping free and easy from the prison is we have to stop the Justice League. And this will get their attention. That's another thing that they want. They want to get the Justice League's attention to know that they did this. So in this meeting that Martian Manhunter had with the JLA, they do the typical, let's split up into teams and go after the villains that we have to get after. Yeah. So,
which for those that are unfamiliar, and that would be me until I started reading these, this is a format that has been pretty consistent with the Silver Age Justice League. The concept of the first page giving you that tease, hey, this is what this issue's about. The first chapter being the setup, and then the second, third, fourth usually being a division into teams doing certain activities, and then the 5 is the wrap up. So they have a chapters system here.
Yeah. So Aquaman, Green Lantern, and Martian Manhunter are going to tackle their old enemies, which are Electric Man, Puppet Master, and Monty Morin, the getaway mastermind. And then Flash, Wonder Woman, and Green Arrow are going after Captain Cold, Professor Menace, and King Clock. So they take off. And
which I gotta know. I'm assuming this is no relationship to the Batman villain, the Clock King.
No, right? I don't think so. It's similar name, but I don't think it's the same one.
I feel like there's a trademark battle I want to see at some point between the Clock and the Clock King.
Yeah, exactly.
And somebody's gonna clock somebody.
Yes, we both know what time that's happening. So. And we take off, and we start out first with Wonder Woman in her invisible robot plane, Green Arrow in his aeroplane, and then the Flash. They're running, and they find Captain Cold's handiwork with a huge ice arrow showing them the way. And they also see a clock with its hands in the wrong direction, pointing them to where they need to go. And they're pretty certain that, we're going to land in some type of a trap, which is exactly what they do. And there's this huge sundial.
It's made out of ice or whatever.
Yeah, it's completely iced over. And they see their villains on the other side. And as they go running towards them, the ice breaks through. It's very thin ice, and there's quicksand underneath. And it starts sinking them down.
What an evil plan.
I know. Green Arrow can't reach his arrows. Flash says, the more I move, the deeper I'm pushing myself in. And Wonder Woman is able to free her arm that has her magic lasso, and she whirls it up, and she gets it on top of this ice cavern, essentially.
Yeah, it basically breaks a hole at the top, and then it's gone.
Yeah, so she's able to kind of lift herself up while the other guys are holding on to the rope as well, and everyone's finally getting out of this trap. So, of course, the villains are on the other side trying to not make that task any easier for them, like Captain Cold is shooting them with his cold gun. And
he seems very casual about them getting through his trap, where he's like, I got this. Let's shoot the gun and just drag this out and be like, oh, you how dare you will never survive my evil plan.
Yep. So Flash decides he starts whirling his arms around in fast motion, but that ice water rain starts cooling off and things are starting to melt at a faster pace than they kind of expect. And the lasso has nothing to be attached to anymore. So they're starting to fall, and they're like, we're going to fall right back into the quicksand. Green Arrow says we can't go up, we can't go down. So Captain Cold is shooting the cold gun once again, and as they snap and start to fall, they're able to swing the rope far enough, which lands them out of reach of the quicksand. So they don't land back into the quicksand. They miss the sundial and kind of went through the mushy walls of the melting ice palace instead.
Yeah.
So the villains are starting to take off in a plane, but the heroes are in high pursuit. There's Wonder Woman and Flash when all of a sudden Green Arrow's arrows start to whiz past them. There's this big blinding light, and when they can see again, Green Arrow is gone, and so are all the villains. And it leaves Flash and Wonder Woman going, what happened?
Did he just help them escape?
Because it certainly looks like he just helped them escape.
Yeah.
So now we move on to the next chapter, and we hear what's going on with the other group. And they went down to Florida, I think, if that's correct.
They did, yes.
Yes, so they went down to Florida. And
my favorite part is is John Jones having to carry
Aquaman. Yes. Yeah, that's kind of funny. So they start traveling in this jet stream with a zone of turbulent high-altitude winds streaming from the west to east around the Earth. But they're, like I said, they're off the Florida coast when suddenly the jet stream was blasted by lightning bolts, and that lightning is changing the jet stream air to water, which is good for Aquaman, but not so good when you're trying to fly through that.
Yes.
And Aquaman knows he has to catch both of them, but he's like, I can't swim upwards when he's got a hold of them. I'm just going to have to let us sink down as gradual as we possibly can. And we have the villains watching from their secret lair, too. And Aquaman is able to save all three of them. And he knows they got to kind of get out of that situation. They're dodging lightning bolts. And of course, the bolts are yellow, so Green Lantern's ring is going to be powerless against them. They come up ahead. The bolts cause the grass to burn, so there's fire for Martian Manhunter. Not good.
I love how they give it one panel, but as you always say, there's gonna be fire.
There's gonna be fire
near Martian Manhunter, no matter what.
Yeah, if he would have went with the other group, there would have been fire there somewhere. So yeah, and they see a rocket ship, but they know it's some type of trap that they're helpless to avoid. Can't anything save us? But all of a sudden, the ground comes out from under them and they're sliding down the chute. We slid faster and faster towards the opening hatchway of the space rocket. And Green Lantern says he's so dizzy he can't focus his willpower on it. And the plan is for them to land inside the spaceship. It will close, imprisoning them. The ship will blast off, hurtling them into the sun. So Martian Manhunter uses his Martian breath, and he's hoping that he can avoid them being able to get in there. What he's actually doing is he lifts the rocket up so they don't land in the absolute opening. And they kind of propel themselves up into the sky, and they see coming at them are giant puppets. So Green Lantern decides, I'm going to blast them out of the sky. And the villains are laughing because they have fallen right into their trap, when all of a sudden they realize Green Arrow is up there with his aeroplane. So they're like, well, what's he doing? Firing 3 arrows. So they're like, well, he must be excited about being a new member. Then they're like, well, he must have finished his case with Flash and Wonder Woman and had success, so that's why he came down here to give a hand. Same thing, blinding light.
Yep.
When the light dissipates, villains are gone, and the heroes are left feeling like, once again, Green Arrow just helped out the villains instead of helping catching them.
You got a lot of awesome people jumping in your chat. We should probably say some. Continue our what is it you call it,
the roll call.
The roll call. The JLA.
So
roll
Kenneth
call.
Bird, and we got Old Wolf stopping by. We have Entropy in Comics, and of course we got our great friend Rod, the Rican Comics and Collectibles.
This is pink because I have amazing ladies in my life. And if we're going to be arguing against comics with curing cancer, we're going to be curing cancer. Breast cancer awareness is a big part of that in my household. So,
yeah, awesome.
But so now chapter 4, right?
Yeah, getting back into the story, Green Arrow's like, okay, you've heard what they had to say, but now you have to hear my side of this story. And he says, because things aren't exactly what they were perceived to be. So he goes back to with Flash and Wonder Woman. As they're struggling for survival in the sundial quicksand, he notices that while their breaths are foggy because of the cold, the villains don't have breath like that. And he starts to suspect that they are robots and not real people. And he remembers one time that Wonder Woman fought, or Professor Menace built an exact duplicate of Wonder Woman for her to fight when they battled before. So he's like, there could be something to this. And the reason that he fired the arrows, because he was pretty sure that if someone touched, or the first impact that someone had with these fake robot versions of the villains, it was going to blow up and take the heroes with them. So he fired the arrows out of sight, and that's exactly what happened. Yeah. So when the arrows impacted on it, everything blew up. It looked like they escaped or they died or anything, but it was just robots that just, yeah.
So for me, like, I don't know if we want to critique it while we're here, but like, not only is it the most outrageous assumptions that he's making here, like, well, I don't see breath. They're probably robots, and they will probably blow up if you touch them. I'm going to shoot them. Just to test this theory.
Probably.
And I don't have time to tell the heroes this theory because I got to dash off to rescue the other guys.
Yep. So as he goes off to the second group of heroes, he's the one who fires the arrow that gently lets Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, and Green Lantern down. And he says, if you don't believe me, look in the back of your costumes and see the little hooks, that my arrow made. And they look at the back of their costumes, and that's exactly what did happen. And same thing, you know, he knows that these things are going to explode just like it did to the other set of heroes. So that's why he took them out. And once again, he is in this situation where the heroes think that they betrayed him, where what he's really done was save them. So then as we move on, this is where we kind of hit the beat of, well, actually, he goes on to say, we have a traitor amongst us, and it's not me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure exactly who it was.
He used an Uno reverse right here.
Yes, like, he did. Very much so. Yeah. And they're all like, what? You know?
Maybe if you were following the story as closely as an avid JLA reader, you too might suspect a given team member.
Yes, because during the part where the deadly puppets created by the Puppet Master were being taken care of, Green Lantern talked about using his power ring on them. Couldn't have, because those puppets were yellow. Dun, dun, dun.
Which means it was Professor Plum in the library.
Yes, Green Lantern is the impersonator, the traitor. So they grab a hold of him, and he pretty easily admits to it and starts to tell him how he was able to do it with a miniature battery inside the ring enabled him, you know, to flash a green light beam and then tilt the emerald and fire tiny gravity discs at the puppets, hitting the puppets squarely. The discs carried them upwards into space. And they're like, well, we got to find the real Green Lantern right now. And they're going to start heading to police headquarters, where we hit the point of what happened during the cover. Gravity starts to go wild. And Gravity lifts our heroes up into this spaceship. And we find out that it's a man in his first appearance called Dr. Destiny. And their will has been taken away by the Gravitron will detonator ray. And the effects will wear off as soon as you're taken out of its range. And he takes off his Green Lantern mask to really reveal that. He says, you know, I'm a master thief, but no one knows it because technically I haven't stolen anything yet. I had to get rid of the Justice League first. And because I knew they're going to be such a threat, you know, and now I'll be able to commit evil and everyone will know who Dr. Destiny is. So as they lead them in, he sees where the real Green Lantern is being held captive. And he talks about how he was able to get a hold of Green Lantern and how he's been held under this light with a beam that kind of zaps his will. And first of all, he went over to Coast City dressed as Green Lantern because he knew that kind of would attract him. When Green Lantern went to investigate, he zaps him. Green Lantern doesn't have the will of his own anymore. That's how they captured him. But to his surprise, at this moment right now, the real Green Lantern somehow is able to bust out of his confinement and take a hold of Dr. Destiny. And he reveals how he did that. It's that he was being held like with this light bulb. And they're like, because Justice League's like, well, didn't your ring run out of power? And he's like, well, here's what happened. I was being held under this light bulb.
He's got his feet up and he's like, let me Uno reverse how I Uno reverse.
Yeah. So when they were using their cosmic generator to draw the JLA up and all of the other cars and stuff were coming up, which, by the way, they let the people in the vehicles and the animals all down easily once they got the Justice League back up there, which was kind of them.
Yeah.
The ship was using so much power that it temporarily, for a moment, enabled him to not be held under such strenuous against his will, where he changed out the light bulb and ended up using part of that in his ring to power it a little bit. And that's how he was able to capture Dr. Destiny in the long run. And he says, well, you know, Green Lantern, you fooled us, or this fake Green Lantern fooled us just like the real Green Lantern fooled him. And Snapper says, well, you know, I'm listening to the little men wondering if every time I see Green Lantern from now on, I'll get the creeps thinking about how I was almost shot into space forever. Because that's what they were going to do. They're going to shoot the JLA into space in this rocket and just have them as far away from Earth and the galaxy as they could.
Yeah, that would fix everything.
And that's the wrap up to this story.
I'm glad I did not have to do that one. It was a lot.
That is a mouthful. That is a mouthful.
So kudos to you, Ryan, for taking that on tonight.
That's why I'm here.
You ready for the Avengers story?
Absolutely.
All right, folks, it's story time. Avengers issue number 5, The Invasion of the Lava Men. And it starts with another, just like the JLA book, another Kirby crackling splash page. Sorry.
It's interesting that yours is yellow and on the digital, it's not yellow.
Oh. And I would have to open my comic out of the Mylar, so I'm not going to check what the actual book had, but maybe at the end if we have time. The team, this crosses over a little bit in the sense that it connects to Fantastic Four 26, and those fans would know that's the second Silver Age appearance of Captain America. It's a Avengers FF tie-in issue where the FF are dealing with the Hulk, and the Avengers show up to help, and it includes a Thing versus Incredible Hulk battle as well. So this takes place immediately after that. The Avengers are coming back to their base, Howard Stark's mansion tower, and it's been kind of demolished, and so they're looking at kind of the wreckage, but everybody's taken off like a party that's over and nobody wants to clean. Thor's like, I gotta fly back to being a doctor. Captain America is gonna take over managing the life of Rick and be like, oh, I can give Rick some training. Ant-Man and the Wasp are like, I want to go home. She's like, I gotta fly. She's already complaining about how like she doesn't get a free ride. And we're left with Tony like, oh, great. I got to clean up all this mess for myself. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. And meanwhile, we jump to one of his factories in Long Island where there's a weird technical disturbance, some vibrations across the earth. And it's leading to some chaos happening all around. And Tony hears word of this and he's like, I just got into my metal underwear. I'm relaxing here. This is the look I'm talking about right there. I don't want to fly back out. I'm still charging. My suit is keeping me alive. They give you a little recap there. Ant-Man and the Wasp get back home, but they're seeing a lot of chaos, even in the anthill that they're passing through, and the vibrations are striking there as well, nearly crushing them. Meanwhile, Dr. Donald Blake, the alternate ego of Thor, is reading the newspaper and having an awkward conversation with his nurse and realizing that there's some things happening that he may need to turn back into Thor to go deal with. Captain America is showing off for the neighbor kids. A lot of kids are standing around watching him do flips and twists and, look what I can do kind of things. Thor catches him and is like, hey, I hear some strange things are going on. And while they're in the middle of talking, vibrations strike where they are too. And all kinds of things and chaos are happening. And it makes them realize it's time for the Avengers to get together. So they rush to a slideshow presentation by Tony Stark, who has set up a projector and he's asking them to zoom in on where they think this is originating. Somewhere in, what did they call it? The southwestern portion of the United States. At the facility, the military facility where this object is protruding from the earth and coming up through the ground. And of course, if it's a military facility, that means we're dealing with Thunderbolt Ross himself with his surly attitude and his let's shoot first and ask all the questions a couple of weeks later attitude. In the midst of all of this is his daughter, who's like, Daddy, here's my boyfriend. It's Bruce, and he's back. And he's like, what? That guy who ran off and disappeared for so long, he's back in your life? What's going on here? I got to deal with this crazy problem. Your boyfriend's awful, and I don't want to hear anything from him. Bruce is busy thinking like, oh, man, if I was the Hulk, he would really hate me, but I'm going to keep that under wraps and not deal with it. He thinks back through how he became the Hulk, how he was an Avenger, how he battled with the Avengers. His whole journey up to now, he basically recaps, all to find out, like, maybe I can prove myself to General Dad if I go and solve this mystery. So he goes over to examine this thing coming up from Earth that seems to be creating the vibrations across the planet that we're dealing with. Turns out, in a little view of Earth above and below, that the Lava Men are behind all of this. Characters that first appeared in Journey into Mystery 97, I guess. Thor versus the Lava Men. And there's a battle going on underneath in this political arena of the sort of shaman, witch doctor lava man, and the leader of the lava men. And the lava men themselves, the people, are stuck in the middle of this thing. And this protruding object is something that they are foisting onto the surface world as a way of taking over, world domination. Let's make the land dwellers above deal with it. Ross has decided, I'm going to shoot missiles at it, because that's the solution to most anything, right? He's got the missiles ready. But the Avengers show up, and Tony's like, let me blast it with some of my rays. Let me fly around and look at it. And he finds a way to get underground beneath it. And that's when they meet the lava men. And Tony's got to battle them first. They're heating up his suit, trying to melt him from the inside. He's using all the suit's energy to keep them at bay. And Cap and Thor show up to his rescue. Thor is like, I faced these guys. I'm not impressed. He stands there. They try to melt him down into the lava, and he just stands there the whole time, cool as a cucumber. I don't beg for help. Like, you guys are pathetic. And he just uses the energy of the hammer to like rise back up out of the lava and sort of float over like I don't know. He's like some kind of like god zombie or something. He just kind of like, I'm not afraid of you guys. And he's basically realizing the truth of what this stone is and what it is that the lava men are doing by pushing it up through the surface of the earth. And he says, I'll just smash it. But they say, no, like, we've tried. If you hit it wrong, it just grows and causes destruction. You can't just smash this with your hammer. It isn't going to work. So he's like, I don't want to hit it. What do I do? Meanwhile, the other Avengers are coming down. Captain America's got with a shield, battle lava guys. And he's doing pretty good. He's throwing it around. He's knocking some of them down. And then they call it cinderizing him. They wrap him in earth and sort of like they're drowning him in soil. They start binding him up. And the only person that's there to help him is Rick Jones, which I'm glad Rick has got something useful to do, but it's interesting. Tony is also going to hold the lava men at bay for them. On the surface of the object, the obelisk, we've got the Ant-Man and the Wasp, and they're examining it for weaknesses. And it seems to them that there is a spot where if they hit it right, they could destroy this thing. But how to get that information to the other Avengers, because they think it's got to be Thor's hammer that does it. Tony is struggling. He's making like walls of stone to keep the lava men at bay. Ant-Man is flipping over helicopters and using the propellers to kind of force the lava men back. But nothing is really working. The team is really struggling. Thor is like, maybe I can help. We need to work together as a team. Meanwhile, up on the surface land, Dr. Banner has a falling apart. He turns back into the Hulk, rips his nice purple suit, and he's back to being the Hulk again. And he's like, what is this object? Oh my gosh, these Avengers, these guys I hate. So then it instantly turns into Avengers versus Hulk again. I think this is the third time in 5 issues we've had this problem. Thor is like, forget all this. I'm just going to use my hammer on these guys. But the shaman does some kind of magic voodoo and forces the Thor to turn back into Donald Blake. In the midst of like an earthquake collapse, he's going to be crushed as a human without his powers of Thor. He's barely able to survive. And this is when the team comes up with a strange sort of plan. And I think some of the credit goes to Cap, some of it goes to Ant-Man, but the idea is they decide if they trick Hulk, they can make him hit that spot on the rock hard enough to destroy it. And of course, that's what they do. They just con him somehow, and the Wasp flies through at the right moment. When he tries to smash her, he actually just hits the rock, destroys it, and fixes everything. Thor turns back into Thor, and he is able to survive just in the last second. And then he gives the big speech to the lava men that they need to scram and that they're annoying, and he can crush them again anytime he wants, and to take their puny rocks and go home. They leave just in time for General Ross to realize, oh, I don't get to shoot my missiles. I'm kind of bummed about that, but whatever. And Betsy, is it Betsy Ross or Betty?
Yeah.
Betty Ross.
Betty finds.
Yeah,
Betsy Ross made the flag.
Yeah, Betty finds Bruce. He's turned back to normal. She takes him, walks him back to their Jeep, and the Avengers are like, okay, wow, I guess we've done okay. But by the way, we got a new mission, so we got to get out of here.
It certainly wasn't Diana Ross.
No,
That's a different show.
Very different show.
Yeah.
So how did I do? Did I get everything?
Yeah, you hit it. So, guys, we kind of gave you the gist of both stories. John presented his much better. Thank God it's not John versus Ryan, because I felt mine was a little choppier. But kind of based on everything we told you, who do you think had the better story is kind of what we want to talk about right now. So
I would say the reason you had a harder time is, and I'm just going to start off by saying it. Of the 10 issues we've read now, you could say 12, because if we throw the Brave and the Bold ones in there, sure. I've read 12 issues of this. That JLA may have been the worst comic I've read of the 12. I really did not like. I was mad the first time I read it, and then the second time I read it, I was still very frustrated. I liked it more this third time with you describing it, but I did not like the writing in that book. I was very frustrated with it.
See, I didn't feel that was. I felt like, once again, it's 15 pounds of, in a 5-pound bag.
Right.
But at the same time, too, it wasn't until I was trying to, right now, verbalize all of that I'm like, oh my gosh, now it's got this, and you got to make sure to include this. And it's like a recipe for checkerboard cake or something that never ends. It
reminded me of like an Edge of the Spider-Verse one shot that Marvel would do now, where they got to cram all these characters into one book, and it's got 3 different people telling different flashbacks on top of flashbacks, and you're just
and it keeps shifting back and forth. So
it's an exposition mess.
Yeah, but I didn't notice that in reading that anytime. Okay. I didn't get that until just right now in trying to explain the story. I didn't get that.
Well, that's good then. Okay.
I actually enjoyed the story.
So my reading went the other way. Like the first time, it was all I could focus on was the choppy like layout of the story, like the way they had done it with all of these flashbacks. No, let me tell you the flashback. No, let me tell you. And then and I was like, I was fine. No, I wasn't fine with it. I was frustrated with it until we got to Green Lantern at the end. I'm like, fuck, we got another guy telling another flashback. They gave Green Lantern like a 2-page flashback at the end. I was like, we did not need the 6th flashback here at the end. Uno reverse you again. Like, it just, at that point I was like, I'm done with this. This is ridiculous. So
I want to ask you,
having you tell it this third time, I got more enjoyment out of that. So my enjoyment increased from first reading to last.
And mine decreased. That's so funny.
Then you went the other way. Yeah.
So
what did you have met in the middle?
We might have. What did you think of Dr. Destiny?
I mean, he's quirky. He's interesting. I think he suffers from the same problem that I have with Green Arrow in this issue, which is that they make the most outlandish statements with nothing to back them up. His Green Arrow saying, those guys, I don't see cold in their breath. They're robots. And if you touch them, you'll die. Like, that leap in logic is just not there. Just like Dr. Destiny's crazy plan of like, I'll take the most powerful people on Earth and throw them into outer space in a spaceship. There's no way that could go wrong.
And then I can start committing my crimes.
Yeah. And I'm a master thief, but I've never stolen anything.
Yeah.
The whole thing is just like, and then inside of all that is like, I'm going to use the ring to fight something yellow, even though I know that's a common weakness of the Green Lantern. Come on. So all of that, like, there were so many little leaps in logic for me that was like, okay, come on. I know I'm supposed to be reading this as a 12-year-old brain, but it's just not there.
Let me tell you something about Dr. Destiny. This character will go on to be, because I don't think you have much experience with him, right?
No, not much. Okay. I think I've come across him a few times, but I honestly cannot place stories in my head.
This character will evolve in Justice League a lot, but not in the immediate future of what we'll be reading.
Okay.
As to show you how far he will go, this is him on. I picked out a book from the Bronze Age with him on the cover, and I'm just excited for you to see what he looks like.
Not in a Green Lantern costume, you mean? Oh, wow.
And he will be able to like go into your dreams and control. And it's actually a pretty cool character. But compared to his first appearance, compared to his first appearance, I mean, this is nothing like this character. He looks more like Skeletor.
Yeah. That's curious. I would never have picked that as his look. So clearly I'm out of the loop on the Dr. Destiny thing.
Yeah. So they will bring this character back and really evolve this character into, I mean, what we saw today is such a pathetic shell of what this character becomes. So just to say that, but hey, kudos to them for evolving an introduced character instead of just starting fresh again.
Sure. Yeah. And there were also all of these villains thrown in, and I was like, I don't think I know, but maybe 2.
Yeah, like Captain Cold, and yeah,
I know Captain Cold obviously, but like so many of the other names, I was like, I don't even know who this person is.
And you guys in the chat, if you want to start telling us which story you liked better, I know we've just been talking about the JLA one now, but we're going to switch in a second here and start talking about the Avengers. But you can start dropping any comments that you have on who you thought you had the better story. So what about the Avengers story?
I laughed a lot in it. Now, whether that was things that they wanted me to laugh at or not, at least when it was like mediocre to bad writing, I was able to laugh at it. I'm at the point now where Janet has stopped being super annoying and I just laugh at it. It's like, I just can't, I pay almost no mind to her because she's so badly written. Like this is another one that is like issue 1 where like everything she says is so vapid, so vain, and so frustrating that thankfully I move on. They even skip over the like hugely valuable move that she does at the end. She's the one that flies and times it just right so that Hulk smashes at the right spot, but she gets like no credit for doing it. Like,
yeah. And as a matter of fact, right after she does that, she says something really stupid too.
Yes. It's a constant like baffling shock to me how poorly they write her character. And I don't know that it's ever been anything that's been resolved. I thankfully the less time she speaks, which she doesn't do much in this issue, the better for me. I do like the stuff they give Hulk and Thor to be doing in this book. I think they get a lot of good stuff to do in this, and the whole backstory of Hulk played out really nicely. So that stuff I really enjoyed. General Ross is such an empty shirt. I'm just like, whatever, dude. Like, you be you. You're always the same. Like, his notes are always the same. Cap, I was surprised, considering he's just a new member. He's almost like a background player. He's not a factor in this issue very much. The same way that Green Arrow is obviously given a huge chunk to shine in Justice League. I felt like Cap was given short shrift here.
So that panel with the Wasp,
yeah,
she says, nah, you couldn't catch a cold, you big ape.
Yeah, you got to make him mad so that he goes after you, because apparently taunting the Hulk is the logical move here.
So this story bored me. It did. It bored me. I'm like, I didn't see anything new that I hadn't seen before.
That's fair. That's very fair.
So I don't know. It just didn't. Nothing.
After last month when we had 2 really great issues, now we've got, in my opinion, 2 kind of clunkers.
Yeah.
But I will say,
not as bad as that issue 2.
No.
Oh, that was horrible.
That was rough. But I will say, like, nothing is gonna, in my opinion, be worse than issue 5 of Justice League. Like that.
Hey,
the
comic Padre is here, making a very good point. There is a reason why Ant-Man and Wasp lost their spot in Tales to Astonish. Yeah, it's the way they were written.
It's bad writing, and I don't think it's ever worked out, because she's the same in Secret Wars in 1985 or whatever. She's the same. She's got Magneto making her combs and the far reaches of space. Like she has not evolved as a character, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
But you play that note hard enough, it's hard to evolve out of that.
So what do we say here? Who had the better story?
It's Avengers by default, because I legitimately loathed the structure of this Justice League book so much.
And it's completely the opposite for me. It's the opposite for me. I was just so bored with the Avengers and the Justice League. While it had too much in it, at least it was something different.
That's fair.
I don't know. The chat doesn't seem to have a lot to say on the better story this time.
Maybe. If anybody in the chat wants to comment in, I think we're split vote on the story here, but it's really just our personal feelings, because you in the chat are going to be the ones that vote at the very end to let us know which book was superior overall when we get to that point.
Yeah.
But for me, this was a clear like clunker for the JLA for me overall, and so just by default, I think the Avengers book would be a better pick for me. But let's get into art.
Yeah. Now this I didn't have a problem with. For me, I'm like, you can go ahead and go first.
I was happy with both. This is an area where I was not frustrated by either one, and I could go back and just look at the art and very much so enjoy this. I don't have any like hate or shame or frustration with either book. But let's talk JLA first, because I want to give huge credit to the panel layouts here. Okay. I feel like they break the mold a ton. Kirby feels very restricted in his Avengers, very much in the square panels and the grids working a certain way. But the JLA book uses these fun long panels a bunch, long and skinny up, vertical, horizontal.
Stuff like that.
Yes. And you just shared my favorite panel. That's my favorite panel.
Was it this one?
The center Aquaman panel.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
Is phenomenal. And again, I talked about the weight that the art has. Look how heavy it looks for Aquaman to hold Green Lantern and to hold Martian Manhunter. And there's lots of drawings like that all the way through. So the panel layouts in the JLA book are incredibly strong. They're original. They're not repetitious. They're not formulaic. And that's probably what drew me to that book the most, was the layouts. And I don't think we talk enough about that in comics. The idea that you're telling a story panel to panel. Are you getting the audience distracted? Are they getting confused because pictures are missing things? The layouts, are they getting boring? That 9-panel style over and over again. I think there's nothing boring going on art-wise in that JLA book. It is striking.
So my favorite panel, and I say this and I feel like people watching will say, oh, that's so predictable. But if you remember, I don't think I picked a Wonder Woman panel yet.
You've been a very good boy, Ryan.
But I am tonight. I'm going to pick a Wonder Woman panel as my favorite panel. And it's this middle one with Green Arrow. I like that. I like the other solo one too, of her just throwing the lasso up. I kind of like that too, but
sure.
I like, because you can see her, it really looks like she's looking down at him, okay, is he making it?
And look at the weight again. Her upper arm looks like it has tension.
Yeah.
The weight on pulling up Oliver, you can see the weight to the arm. I think in the same way that one I chose of Aquaman has the same. Again, look at their horizontal layouts that are almost back to back. They're like a couple pages apart, but they have a similar fun horizontal layout that I think is exciting. And then detail in the background to go with it.
And with the Aquaman one that you like so much, how many times do you see where it looks like you could tell his hair is wet?
Yeah.
And it should be. And it should be.
Look at the pressure on his back. Like you can see how much exertion he's putting out.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. The physicality of that feels authentic. And I think that's interesting. So big fan of those pages.
So what about over Avengers wise?
I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So once again, the artwork is overall pretty good, but there are many panels again where it's just white background, not going to draw anything in, not going to do it. Too busy. And Justice League never does that. Never.
I will say it starts that. No, go ahead.
I mean, even a page like this, look at how much white is in the background on just this one page, but every page is like that,
Yeah. I felt like it started that way, and then as we got into the caves, we started getting a little more background.
Bit more,
but there's definitely ones like, what's with the just do a big green background on these caves.
Yep.
Let's just do green. And it's part of the Kirby Lee dilemma, where Lee wants all these words, all these word spoken pieces. So they're just doing the characters and the word bubbles, right? That's it. That's all they're giving you,
As for my favorite panel, this is the one I liked.
I mean, Thor has got a lot of great stuff going on in this book. So I totally can see why Kirby's Thor looks so menacing and interesting in this book, for sure. Yeah, that's a great one. And there's lots of good drawings of Kirby, of Thor that I think were done there. What is it you liked about that one?
I liked the look on his face. He looked very much, don't mess with me. We are the Avengers,
Right.
And we're up to this. He's pep talking them, and he's confident. The confidence exudes in that panel. I just kind of like the layout of him between the two openings in the cave. I just thought that worked really well.
I like it. Yeah, that's a great one. I had to go with Iron Man in his underwear. Like
in his drawers.
I laughed so hard at that page where it's just like he's plugged into the machine and he's trying to get his work done. He's got a cigarette in his hand in the previous shot. It's just like I don't know where the cigarette went in the panel I liked. I'm dying. I needed him to have like a cocktail. I needed Pepper Potts to be bringing in something.
Yeah.
I don't know. The whole thing just it just tickled me pink. So I just that panel, as much as I like some of the others, and I do love the retelling of Hulk's story.
That was good.
Really strong. I love those panels. I love the way they're trying to bleed in Marvel history into these early issues.
Like there said, with the explosion. That's really good.
Yes. And all the Thor like hovering over the lava. I think there's lots of great vibe from that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what made this for me second easily to JLA was the layouts. The layouts are so repetitive. Like they're just it's a basic 3-2-3, 3-2-3, like a song that feels like you've heard it before and liked it better somewhere else, right?
It's like the paper is already pre-drawn with the panels in it, and they're just filling them in.
Exactly. And when you would occasionally get a panel that would break the mold, it was thrilling.
Yeah.
It was like, oh wow, look at that. But it happened so irregularly, so rarely that it became like tiresome in that way. Does that make sense? And it felt like just Marvel formulaic kind of stuff.
I never noticed
the JLA, which was invigorating. I would turn a page and not know what it was going to look like next, and it would always suit the story better.
Can you hold that page up that you just showed with the Earth? Can you hold that back up?
Yeah, I was noticing there's a lot of
coloring differences because I think yours is more pinkish and mine is green.
This one?
Yeah. Oh no, yours is blue.
I saw a lot more green in yours.
See, when I look at yours, I almost see like a female face up there, but I don't notice it as much. Yeah, but I don't notice it in the green like at all.
If you want to tell us which one you pick, I'll open my comic up and we'll see what the actual issue looks like on the interior, because we clearly have discrepancy here, right?
Yeah.
So which book art wise would you
Justice
prefer?
League? It's Justice
League. Is it
League.
even close?
No, it's Justice League.
All right, let's take a
look. Good
Let's
thing Chet's not here.
I know. Sorry, Chet. Jedi Knight's gonna be mad at me. So yeah, it's definitely more blue.
Yeah, definitely. And I see a female face looking at that too. But man, on the green, well, I guess in the green a little bit, but do you see what I'm talking about? Like with the face?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do. And what was the other one with the color that you were like, oh, that's...
It was on the splash page.
This one?
Yeah.
The yellow. Oh, and look at the word lava, man. Even the lettering is blue.
The lettering
on mine,
has been
so
changed.
Colorful on yours.
Yep.
I wonder what.
And the Mighty Avengers is a different color too.
Yeah. I'm gonna look back. Yeah, mine's all blue here. So the omnibus must be reprinting the comics, but the digital version has a little more.
Has been cleaned up or something. So
yeah. So there you go, folks. Look, you learned a little something about Marvel through the ages there.
Yeah. So which are you picking up for art?
I mean, definitely JLA. It's
okay.
JLA all the way.
All right. So here's an interesting category.
Yeah.
Let's stay with Avengers.
Okay.
MVP. I know whom I'm picking.
Do it.
I'm picking the Wasp.
just because of the flyby.
For this reason, I don't think I'll ever get a chance to pick her again, at least in the forthcoming future. She actually does qualify a little bit for it. So it's not, I mean, she, like you said earlier when you were telling the story, she had to be at the precise moment at the precise time to antagonize the Hulk for him to hit that spot. But then I hate what she does right after it, and then she's barely even acknowledged again for the rest of the issue, and all that moment is thrown away in just one panel.
Yeah.
But I just figure if I don't vote for her now, I'll never get the chance to.
I will say this is one of the things I liked about this Avengers issue is they spread the wealth really well. You know, Ant-Man is the one that finds the pivot point that they need to hit with the power. I think Captain America is the one that technically has the plan of getting Thor up there to hit the thing, to have Hulk hit the thing.
Yep.
Like Wasp, like you mentioned, Tony is the one that seems to be like has all the gadgets, has an interesting look. Interesting how different they look in different mediums. Yeah. Yep. What's up, Tyler?
Yeah. Hey, Tyler, how you doing?
And Iron Man's got all the gadgets that allow them to do so much, and he's the one that holds off the Lava Men for such a huge, long time. You can't dismiss Iron Man. He also does a great PowerPoint presentation, apparently. Kudos to him for that.
In his drawers.
And then I'm picking Thor. I know he doesn't hit the rock with the hammer, but I feel like he gets a ton to do here, and I really do feel like this is Kirby saying, look, Thor's my favorite. And I'm finally getting a chance to kind of like Byrne showing that Wolverine love, like to giving Wolverine a place to shine. This felt like the first example of Kirby giving Thor the chance. And Thor tells off the Lava Men. He shows down the Lava Men. He learns the truth about the rock. I feel like, he's the guy that earns it most for me.
Okay, that's pretty fair.
There you go. Yeah.
Over on the DC side, who is your MVP?
I think it's really hard not to choose the Green Arrow here, and that seems like it's kind of the crux of the entire book. Is he figured it out? He saved everybody's butts, and he didn't even lose his marbles when everybody blamed him as like a traitor and had like a trial for him in the middle of the Justice League tower or whatever.
And not only that, he's the one who was the only one who picked up that there was a true traitor in their midst. So I go Green Arrow, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's the function of the book. Yeah, the function of the book is like, he's great. They're lucky to have him. Look at all he can do. And I wish that the Avengers book had done the same for Cap as like hey, remember Captain America's really cool. Look at all the stuff he can do. Make him a genuine leader or whatever. But I don't think they were ready for that role for him yet. Versus clearly on the JLA side, they were like, yeah, let's look at this cool Green Arrow guy.
I actually think that this story would have been better to make him into the member with, because remember last issue, he wasn't even in the story that much at all.
No.
And I think this would have been like if they would have went like, oh my gosh, he saved us. Absolutely, he should be our new member. This should be his introductory issue.
Right. No, that would have been an interesting way to introduce him as somebody that like was showing up at weird times while they're trying to capture bad guys and foiling their plans. And then they're like, oh, maybe he is a villain. Maybe he's not a hero. And then he joins. Yeah, I like that idea. That's very clever.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's the clear MVP of the JLA book. And if you're going to argue, which is the next question, right? Who is the superior MVP across both books?
It's him.
It's him. Like he's definitely, he's if anybody gets a spotlight on them this month, it's Oliver.
Yeah. Yeah. Green Arrow is definitely the MVP.
Yeah. I don't think
both
it's
books. So I don't think so
However,
either.
I'm realizing in this discussion, there's a flaw in the MVP thing.
Okay.
And I'm curious what you think. Does the MVP award defeat the function of a team book? Meaning, what I like about the Avengers book is that all these characters get a ton of moments to shine. and there is no easy to pick MVP because they're all getting some fun things to do. Versus if they have an easy to pick MVP, does that defeat it as a team book and make it like a solo character story within a team book?
I don't know. I mean, I know you're such a big sports fan like I am, and football has an MVP. You know, oh my God, that was so good. Did you notice how I just let that sail out so smoothly? Just like
really well done. Yeah. But like my worry is that isn't the function of a team book not to have an easy MVP to pick and to see it function as a team, and is awarding easily one player as the MVP. Does that underscore a problem with the book in that like the team isn't getting a chance to shine, but one player is, like a star player on a team that loses the championship versus a team that plays well together and everybody shines and they win? Does that
something to think about? Yeah, it does.
It's one thing just a thought that dawned on me just now.
One thing that I have to ask you about with the JLA book, what do you think about Batman's input on that issue? And here's the reason why I say that. Batman didn't say one word in the entire issue. He didn't even get a balloon. He got nothing. He was there, and he was in several parts of the book. Didn't say a word.
It's the right amount of Batman. You know, you sprinkle in just the right amount to flavor it a little bit, and then you focus on all the other guys instead.
A sprinkle of Bat.
Doesn't Superman at least speak? I thought Superman had a line at one
point. Yeah, I think he said like one or two things, and
but keep Bruce Wayne quiet.
Yeah,
put a cork in it, Brucey.
Yeah.
So there you go. 3 out of 4 in agreement with us go to the Justice League book as the victor, as far as you and I are concerned. But what does the chat think?
Yeah, this is it, guys. We have to come up with the absolute winner.
Comic Padre is in the chat. Shattered Glasses in the chat. Tony, Rod. So you guys have heard some of the evidence that we have presented to you, some of the things we've shared. So you just drop it in. Tell us your opinions. Which book you thought overall was the winner as we debate a little bit more on our thoughts here.
Yeah. I myself, and I know you really dislike the Justice League book, but to me it's that because it won in so many individual categories that it had to be doing something right to win in those categories.
Yeah, and I think overall the artwork is what saved it for me, and cover, interior is what saved it. The story just was so frustrating to read. I almost felt bad that I gifted you this book after I read it the first time. I was like, oh, it's got to be this one. This is the one. So sorry.
Well, heck, even during my review, we had to take a commercial break to talk to the chat. Just there it is. Just to take a deep breath for a second. So,
Padre was saying, I like to think that these team books, Avengers and Justice League, are to shine the spotlight on characters that don't have their own books. That's an interesting thought, and I know that that's definitely the function that DC seems to be going with for these original series. And Rod. You got to tell us, Rod, which was the better issue. I know you heard bits and pieces of this, Rod. Did you think the Avengers book or the Justice League book was better? So far, we've got no votes in the chat. Padre's still here. Rod's still here.
So would you vote for Avengers then?
No, I would not.
You wouldn't? Okay.
As much as I'm a story first kind of guy, all the other pieces point to Justice League. And even though the story was so frustrating for me, I could go back and just look at the artwork in this and be completely happy. So I personally am voting JLA, but I could just look at these pages and get a lot of enjoyment out of the energy, the physicality of what the artists and I'm inker, colorer, letterer we're doing here.
In the last few days, John has finally thought to himself, I spent my money on this. So
I spent it on a friend.
You did. Which is always a good investment.
Boom. There it is.
Yeah. So we did get an Avengers vote.
So that means it's 2 JLAs to 1 Avenger, right? You and I counting as each of one, and then Rod. folks, as a reminder, the show bounces back and forth. So that means issue 6 at some point is going to land on my channel, probably in the middle of October. So just be ready for issue 6 of JLA and issue 6 of Avengers. Feel free to crack that app open if you've got the Marvel app, the DC app, or maybe if you're lucky to have these individual issues or omnis, you can check them out, read them, and then join us for the breakdown when Avengers versus JLA or JLA versus Avengers kicks off again here for issue 6.
Yeah, now vote for JLA.
So chat is split, but the panel is not so far. So that might be it. That might be all.
Yeah, that probably will be it. So, of course, if you're watching in the rewind too, even though the voting's been tallied and the winner's been decided, you can still sound off in the comment section below. And you can subscribe to John's channel if you're not already. I would be surprised if you weren't, but there is a link in the description for this video. And if you missed previous episodes, we have a playlist on my channel as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for making that playlist. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So I think overall, I can call it probably pretty safely that the tiebreaker tonight is JLA.
Yep, I agree.
So that's cool. All right.
Congrats to JLA for coming out 3 out of the 5 first issues and really coming in strong.
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty cool.
I overall have been really enjoying this experience because I know I'm not the biggest Silver Age reader, not the biggest fan of this era because of, it's very juvenile. And then that's the design of it. It's made for kids. You got to be able to put your mindset in that time, in that place. But man, the artwork is so strong in this time. In this time.
Boy, I mean, in the 1960s, some of that stuff that we looked at today, Lava Man and going into space in a rocket, for a kid who paid,
mine was 12 cents. Yeah, mine was
10
12
cents here.
Yeah.
10 to 12 cents for a book. You got a lot. Yeah, you got your money's worth. So
you got all those superheroes battling and
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, like I said, it'll be a long time before Dr. Destiny turns into more of that character that I showed and talked about before. But this was technically his first appearance and got better with age. So I'll say that. So you'll actually see that with some other JLA characters that they'll come back and start using them again. And even some of the characters that we have featured already will definitely get improved upon as they get used more and more. So,
sure.
Cool. Well, Justice League of America, the winners tonight. Thank you guys so much for joining us. As John said, our next episode will be on his channel next month. Might not necessarily be on a Tuesday night, though. Or Wednesday night. No, Wednesday night. Sorry, today's Wednesday.
It might be a Thursday. Just
it might be
depend on some schedules. But we're trying to go middle of the week somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere in there. And we look forward to visiting with you then. Thank you for spending some time with us, especially those in the live chat and those that watched on the rewind all the way to the end. Of course, that means the world to us. We hope you have a great rest of your night and great rest of your week. Anything coming up for you that we can talk about with your channel or any other appearances that you're making?
I just want to shout out the C3 event coming up. It's a little less than a month away, but there's also still time to donate books and things for those auctions that go around during C3. So please reach out to Comics Curing Cancer on Instagram if you have some comics that you would like to donate to the amazing cause of defeating cancer. We've raised almost $100,000 since the beginning of doing these events. That's a ton of money.
That's awesome.
Towards defeating cancer. So if you've got comics to donate, please reach out sooner rather than later. We've only got like another week or so before you can get those things in time for us to be able to use them in the auctions. So please support Comics Curing Cancer.
Awesome. My next appearance will be Fanboys Live in the Retro Review with Signature King Tony Fett. That will be this upcoming weekend, Sunday night at 8:15 p.m. Eastern, 7:15 p.m. Central. It's Tony's pick tonight for this week. I have a back issue of the week YouTube short about Barney and Betty Rubble. Yes, they had their own comic book. And I own one issue of it. So that's the one I talk about in the back issue of the week. Yesterday, I dropped a comic book editions video with some recent additions into my collection. And I did an all JLA haul to tie in with tonight's show. I'm working on trying to complete volume 1, and there's some keys that actually I was able to acquire that I showed off in the video, and I will say there's still more, at least another JLA haul coming before the year is up for sure on my channel. So, I had that goal of 1 a month for the next 3 years when this year started, and I've already surpassed the 1 a month for this year by a lot. So yeah. It feels good to get this number going in the right direction. So, if you want to check that out, that's cool too. Thank you guys again for watching our JLA versus Avengers. Have a fantastic week, and we will catch you soon.